What's going on, guys? Welcome back to What's in Your Curry podcast. This is episode 4. I'm your host, Rana. How are you guys doing? Share in the comments. Tell me how you guys are doing. And if you guys have even gone ahead and watched the last 3 episodes that I'd recorded in the last week or so. So tell me, how much did you cringe? Please share in the notes. Tell me how much you cringed watching any of those episodes, watching me talk, whatever it is. I would love to hear from you. Okay, so this episode 4 of the podcast, here's the honest truth about it. I had no intention of recording any video this entire week because there are multiple things on my plate and I am busy working on my LinkedIn, working on creating short form videos for LinkedIn, my community, writing pieces of content, all of that, and then also working and collaborating with other creators. So I had a lot on my plate and I had no intention of doing this week. But then life happened. Life has a funny way of reminding us of why it is that we started whatever it is that we're doing. So here's my reason. So a couple of days ago, I watched Cody Sanchez's recent podcast episode. I can't really remember what the title of it was, but it was a very recent one. So if you listen or watch Cody Sanchez's videos on YouTube, you know that she has a podcast called The Big Deal. So one of her recent episodes on that was about her being vulnerable and sharing all of her failures right from the get-go of when she had started school, like college, to where she is today. And her story resonated with me, like a lot of it. A lot of her story resonated with me, and it inspired me to record and share my own story. Now, I am not comparing myself to Cody by any means. She is way ahead in life, but I'm really inspired by a lot of the things that Cody does for us, for the community, and for inspiring us to become owners and not people who are just looking for jobs and things like that. You get the point. Watch her. If you haven't, please listen to her or watch her videos on YouTube. I'm sure you will be inspired as well. So anyway, so that podcast, her story really resonated with me, and that inspired me to record this. So here I am, and I too want to share my story. And by the end of it, I hope you understand why it is that I am doing this, especially recording myself, doing this podcast, and doing whatever it is that I'm doing. I hope you get to see and understand what's my reasoning behind it, what's my why behind it. And I hope that at the end of this, you too are inspired in any form. If I can help you be inspired to pursue whatever it is that you are thinking of doing, just like how Cody has inspired me to record this, I would be more than happy. I will be more than happy. So anyway, so let's get to this. Okay. So I'm Rana. I am 37 years old, and 3 years ago, I moved to Bangladesh. Bangladesh is where I was born, but I never lived here. I was a year old when I had moved with my mom to the Middle East, and that's where I grew up. I was there until I was 18, and right after high school, I moved to the US for college. And when I graduated, I remember feeling excited about the fact that I am moving to the US, but I had not told anyone, especially all of my peers who, like me, were going abroad to study. And when I mean abroad, I mean the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, or some other place out there in Europe. anyone, whoever had gone to any of these places that I just mentioned, these handful of countries, I just for more context, I graduated in 2006. So 2006 was when we were all moving to college. And at that time, for a lot of us South Asians, maybe even still so now, but at that time, for a lot of us immigrants or international students, there were only a handful of countries that we all knew of. The US, UK, Canada, Australia, and some other few countries in Europe. Not even all of Europe, maybe Italy here and there, but not so much. Not so much anything beyond these countries. And yes, sometimes a lot of the people, a lot of the kids that I grew up with, they went back to their motherland, like, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about anyone else like me who had moved abroad to other countries, these five, six countries that I mentioned, right? So here's the thing. I was excited about moving to the US for college, but I had not told any of my peers the school that I was going to. And the reason being is because I had not gotten accepted or I had not gotten into any of the top schools like your Ivy League schools or your top 100 public universities, whatever that list. I'd not got into any of those schools. And I just wasn't sure how I wanted to tell if I even wanted to share that with any of my peers, any of the kids that I graduated with. Why? Because all of these guys I don't think any of them went to an Ivy League school. Maybe they might have been, but I'm not quite sure. But all of them went to the top schools in the country or whatever country that they were going to. And the part that I sometimes when I look back, I am proud of, but I'm also not sure how exactly to respond to that is I had gotten accepted in one of the top schools in the US, Purdue University in Indiana, but I wasn't able to move there because of my dad believed at that time that, hey, instead of you moving to a state where we didn't have family, why don't you start looking into schools where we had family living? So I understand where my dad's concern was. Looking back, I can understand that. But at that time, I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to respond. I remember I was not very happy about it because there were a couple of people from high school who were moving to Purdue University, who were moving to the US and they were going to study in Purdue University. So, like when you graduate high school, you want to do something, or when you're thinking about going to college, you're always getting in groups of people and you're like, hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to this place. I'm going to this school. And then you start seeing how can you keep the circle close and maintain that friendship and even go to the same university or college or whatnot. So for me, since I knew I was moving to the US and I had an idea that the US is so big that, people are going to be scattered everywhere. So for me to be able to go to a school where some of my high school friends were going to, I was happy. So when that decision was made, when my dad had told me not to go over there because he wasn't sure of how I would adjust and start looking into like schools where we had family, which is Texas, Washington State, California, New Jersey, New York, all of those states. So I was a little bummed out. And after that, I had not told anyone where it is that I was applying or where it is that I was going to. So anyway, long story short, I ended up going to the US. I had to defer my admission for a semester. So instead of like fall 2006, I started in spring 2007. So that was already something that I wasn't sure how I wanted to tell any of my peers. So I already kind of like was feeling a little bit like a failure because I'm starting college late, and I'm 18. So of course you go through all of those emotions. And now I'm in the US. I'm going to school. I'm going to this amazing university, but it just wasn't a top university. It was a great university. And I was late for admission, or let's just say I was not available on the day of the student orientation for international students for that semester. So because of that, any of the classes that people, international students, or anyone who needed to register to be a full-time student, all of the classes that I was going to be able to register for had been full. So I didn't have any classes that I could have registered for that semester that were going to be part of my curriculum. And since I am there now in the US and I have to be a full-time student, I had taken four classes. Four classes is 12 credits, which is your full-time student. I had to take four classes that weren't even going to be counted as part of an elective or part of my curriculum. They were just classes that I had to take just to remain legal in the country. So that was me, my first semester in the US. So it was an entire waste if I like really thinking about it. I was taking a nutrition class. Who the hell wants a nutrition class? Whatever it is. So classes like that that didn't count for towards my degree, towards my curriculum, nothing. Those credits were completely a waste of time, and my tuition fees that I paid for that semester was out. During that time, during that semester, I had made friends and I had spoken with a lot of other kids, a lot of other students who were telling me something about this concept called community college. Now, if you aren't from the US and if you haven't studied in the US or lived in the US, a community college is just like your junior college. Just think of it as junior college, where you take your first 2 years of your foundational courses before you declare a major. You take these courses for a cheaper price. So a lot of these kids, whoever I was talking to, they were planning to take community courses during the summer in a community college. And I spoke with the family that I had, or my family who lived in the US. I spoke with them and they had told me, yes, you could do this and things like that. And you could go ahead and transfer all of that jazz. So I started inquiring about them and I started looking into community colleges. And then I found out that the community colleges are literally 10% of the fees that I was paying at a university as an international student. The community college fees is pretty much the same, whether you're an international student or a US citizen or a permanent resident, whatever. It's the same fee. So I'm like, hell fucking yeah, I'm going to go there. I did that, transferred, and I transferred in the summer of '07, and I started my courses that were actually going to be counted towards my degree. That was the summer of '07. So think about it. I already started. My first semester that I was there was already a waste. So, and I had deferred my admission. So I was already a year late when it came to starting college right after graduating high school. So I was already a year behind than all of my peers I graduated high school with. Now, here is where a lot of things changed for me. Now, when I went to community college, the fees was less. The tuition was so less compared to university fees that my dad was supporting my education. My dad would send me a lot of money at that time to cover my entire semester's uh, expenses, tuition, living, all of that stuff. And he would send me some extra cash as well. This is the first time in my life where I had so much freedom. I had so much independence. I didn't have to go back home. I didn't have to report to mom and dad of what it is that I was doing, what time I was coming. So I had so much independence handed over to me, hand over fist, like all of this, that I just went ballistic. I went on a living spree. Let's just put it that way. Living spree. I was living my life. I was going out. I was eating out. I was spending a lot of time with friends, and I was spending a lot of money. And if my dad, for example, had sent me money for 4 months, I would have all of that money being spent after paying all of my tuition and things like that in 2 months. So I was spending a lot of money. I was enjoying. I was having fun. I was living life. And what was happening was that it was affecting my school. I stopped attending classes, and I would barely make it to classes, and I would only show up for like exams or like tests and midterms and things like that. I would not turn in any of the homework. All of that, I would make up excuses to all of my professors saying that, hey, it's like I'm having financial troubles. I have to work day and night. I am too tired to come to school and things like that. Like I made excuses head over heels. Like I was just making excuses, all of that. And somehow the professors were uh, they were okay with it, and I just went by. But this is where it started catching up on me. Is I started failing classes, and as an international student, when you're supposed to maintain a 2.0 GPA, so I wasn't able to maintain a 2.0 GPA within that first year that I had moved to a community college. And because of that, I went into probation, academic probation. I had failed most of the classes for that entire year. So now I had to technically restart all of my undergrad after that 1 year in community college. And because of academic probation, I for an entire year I was not able to take more than 12 credits, actually more than 9 credits, because for 2 whole semesters I had to take classes which essentially taught you how to study. Like I didn't need that, but it was because of my own mistakes that I made that I stopped going to classes, that I had to take all of these classes. So that kind of delayed the whole process. So long story short, 3 years into the US, and I had only completed 1 year of credits. Can you imagine that? 3 years into the US, and I had only completed 1 year of credits of classes that were actually counted towards my degree. And then after the 2 year community college was done, then I transferred to university. This time I got into a university because I had worked my butt off. I had learned my lesson on the academic probation thing, and I worked my butt off to get my GPA up to a point where I was able to get into a good public university. And the university that I went to was very well regarded within the state and within certain fields like business, engineering, computer science, medical, all of that. So I got into that school, and a lot of the kids that I went to in the community college had also transferred there. So I had a good amount of like good friends that I had made. We all transferred there, and I completed the remaining 2.5 years in that school. So 2012 was when I graduated. And by the time I graduated, it had taken me 6 whole years, 6 whole years to get done with undergrad, whereas it would take someone 4 years or 4.5 years. So for me, by the time I graduated, I had, I had felt like a failure. I was not very proud of myself, even though it was a proud moment that I graduated, but I was not very proud of it because I was comparing my situation to the people that I was graduating with. I was already 2 years older to them. I always felt like I was much older, and then I started comparing myself to all of the kids that I graduated with in high school. They had graduated a year and a half, 2 years before me, and now they've all started their careers. I am graduating, have no job lined up. I don't know where the road is headed. And on top of that, I'm in the US, so now I have only 1 year of work permit because I was a business major. I was not a STEM major. So I only had 1 year of work permit, and within that 1 year work permit, I had to get a job lined up. I had to get a sponsor for my work visa, things like that. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So in that 1 year, the first 9 months of that 1 year, I had no job, meaning I had interviews. I had 13 interviews, and out of the 13 interviews, 7 of them called me back for a second interview. And I thought, okay, things were moving forward because of the interviews. I had applied to a bazillion jobs, and out of them, 13 of them called me. And out of the 13, 7 of them called me for a second interview. And I thought, okay, something is going to happen. Something is going to come out of this. Nothing. No one wanted to hire me because they needed to sponsor my visa. So that was when I realized the whole immigration part of it. Because I thought because when I was a student, I'm not really thinking about immigration, but it was only during that time when I was going through that process, realized that how big this immigration, how big of a crutch this is for all of us immigrants in the US. So uh, I only had 3 more months left, and I knew that I was nearing my end of my work permit. So hesitantly, I got into a master's program that was going to start in the spring of 2014. And that was only because I wanted to stay in the US and I needed to be legal. So to legally live in the US, I became a student again and hesitantly enrolled myself into a master's program. And something just happened like 3 months before the master's program, or 3 months before the end of my work permit. I got a job at a startup. And like, something is better than nothing, right? Beggars can be choosers. I didn't have a job, and it was a desk job before that, just to make ends meet. I was working at a gas station, and I was in the morning, and I was delivering pizza at night, just to make ends meet in those 9 months. And then I got this offer from a startup. It was a desk job, very low paying job. It was 22,000, I think, 22,000 per year, whatever. And it was still a lot more than what it is that I was making. And it was a lot less than what I could have made or what I should have made with my degree, but whatnot. They were offering me this position, and I was like, all right, I'll go ahead and take it. And I stuck with them for like 7 years. The reason why I stuck with them for 7 years is because they said that they would go ahead and sponsor my visa, and they would also help me in the sense, like, I would be employed during the time that I was doing my master's. So I was working full time, doing my master's full time, and during that time we had started working on my sponsorship, my work visa thing. And it just so happened, everything kind of like just lined up. All of the elephants just kind of like lined up. As soon as I got done with my master's, I also got picked on the lottery. And so my work visa was also approved, things like that. And then after that, the next 6 years of my journey with the work visa had started with them. Uh, was working at the startup like the best thing that ever happened to me? I wouldn't say so, but I learned a lot during those 7 years. It was chaotic. There was no structure. There was a lot of politics that I had seen and I had learned from. I learned a lot of lessons because when you're working at a startup, you're not just hired for one singular role. You're wearing multiple hats, and your hands are getting dirty. You're into like different things. So I learned a lot. But what I missed was a structure. It was less ambiguity. And I wanted a little bit more of a defined role and defined responsibilities. So that was the thing that I had missed the most working at a startup. Now, remember, I had said that when I had graduated, I wasn't really proud of it. But I graduated, and I felt like a failure because I didn't have a job lined up. I was already late with graduation and things like that. That feeling never went away. I was insecure about myself. I felt like a failure, even more so when I started working at the startup, because everyone that I knew, almost everyone that I had graduated with, they had all got corporate jobs earning corporate salaries. And I am making about a third of what they were making working at a startup. And so I felt really, really small. I was learning a lot more compared to them. But when you're young, you're not wise enough to see. It's like, hey, what am I learning? You're comparing yourself to your peers based on the title, based on how much money you're making, based on where you're living, the car you're driving, the company that you're working for, all of the external things. All of the external things. It's not about your growth. You're not looking at the growth. You're just looking at, hey, what can you show for? That's what you're basing off of success. You're basing success off of that. So for me, I felt like a failure throughout those 7 years. And during those 7 years, I had applied. Once my visa and everything got approved, I was applying left and right to other jobs as well. Because as I started getting more experience, I started thinking that, you know what, I was not feeling confident, but I started seeing myself as someone who could do other roles within my field of accounting and finance. And I started applying for other roles in other corporations, mostly American corporations. But no one was willing to hire me because of the visa thing. So immigration was a huge problem for me. So for that, I remained with the startup. I was there for 7 years, and I had faced so much rejection even while I was there that there came a point where I just didn't care. I honestly just stopped caring. And but I had grown within the firm. I had grown within the firm, and I was the last 3 years of me working in that firm, I was making a lot more money than I had thought that I would ever make. And I was making a lot of money, a lot more money, because I was an advisor. So it wasn't just salary, I was also making a percentage off of the clients that I was bringing in and the services and the strategies that they would sign up for. I was making a percentage of all of from that. So I was making decent amount of money. But again, it was contingent to how many clients I was bringing in, all of that. So it was never a certain amount. It was never a fixed amount. My salary was higher than what it was when I had started, much higher. But it was still, even if I had combined all of that income that I was making in those last 3 years, each year, I was still making less than any of my peers that I was comparing myself to. So that was the thing. So I had learned a lot, and I had 7 years of work experience and all of that stuff now. And then something happened. Something happened towards the end of 2019 where a recruiter from Goldman Sachs had reached out to me. And if anyone has worked in Goldman Sachs, I think you guys can attest to this. Goldman really doesn't reach out to people or hire people who've not gone to like your Ivy League schools or like the top schools. That was one of the things that I had resonated with. See, a lot of this thing that I just mentioned about my story, I resonated with Cody's story and that podcast a lot because a lot of the similarities that I'd felt. So the same thing with the Goldman Sachs story. So recruiter had reached out to me from Goldman Sachs for their personal finance division, and I didn't really think much of it because I'm like, hey, it's probably going to be another rejection, whatnot. Took the call, and we had a good discussion. And long story short, after like a few months of intense interviews, and also during that time, COVID happened. So a lot of these things was just kind of like put in a halt, and I had forgotten about it. But nonetheless, long story short, like I got the job. The my base salary, I was only given a base salary because I was an analyst. They had hired me as an analyst, so my base salary itself was 2 times whatever it is that I was making as my base salary in the startup. So I had switched. I had started working with Goldman, and immediately within the first month, I realized I did not fit in. Can you believe that? 7 years later, 7 years later, I had finally thought that I had made it, and I started working with Goldman frickin' Sachs, and I felt that I was like, yo, this is not something that this is not a place that I fit in, because literally, quite literally, 99% of the people around me, they were super smart, all went to the top schools, some from Ivy League, and some who had interned with JP Morgan Chase, all of these big name banks and companies that you can think of. And these guys all spoke in a language that I didn't even understand, or at least I had not heard in a very, very long time. Financial lingo, all of this jargon that they were throwing. And while they were speaking, during conversations itself, they would throw in terms that I was like, what? I had no idea what they were talking about. So, in short, my first year was extremely hard. Was extremely hard because the thing with Goldman is everyone's moving at a pace of 1,000 miles per hour, and I am trying to freaking catch up, man. I'm trying to learn as fast as I could, and I'm failing. I am making a ton of mistakes. I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to understand all of this shit that they're throwing at me, and I am moving as fast as I could, but I was still slow for my team, the people that I was working with, and all of that. And it was incredibly hard. The first year was incredibly hard. I felt like a fraudster. Imposter syndrome was at its peak. I stopped going to any corporate events. I would not go for any team lunches. I would not speak to anyone whenever I would be there in the office. I would just have my headphones and just mind my own business. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be with anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. It's just that I knew that I had to catch up and I had to learn so much and just even try to being on a level of someone who might have just graduated, even though I had all of this experience. But I felt like someone who just graduated undergrad from coming from any of these schools is 10 times ahead of me. That's how I felt. That's how small that I felt. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to go to any of these corporate events, because I just didn't want to be part of that. Because 8 hours, whenever it is, whenever return to the office had started, 8 hours being in the office was long enough for me to bear for one day. And then again, seeing them for a couple of more hours for all of these team lunches and things like that. It was just a lot. It was overwhelming for me. But anyway, so that happened. So after the first year, what happened was I think my managers at that time had realized that, maybe the team that I was part of, which yes, rightfully so, the team that I was put in uh, was moving extremely fast, and the managers were really demanding. And I was having a hard time trying to like keep up and things like that. So the HR and the staffing, like at the year end, when they were deciding on like what they could do like rotation talent wise for each team, they decided to move me from my previous team and they decided to put me into the other team, into another team. And that's when things started changing for me, because that second team that I was put into, I freaking loved it. I got along with the managers really, really well. I got along with the team really, really well. And the managers had kind of, and the team lead for that team, shout out to Andrew. The team lead from that team, from my second team, was the team lead of the previous team that I was in. So when Andrew had found out that I came from that team, he just patted me on the back and he said that he survived one whole year. That's a great achievement. And he understood my pain. He understood where it is that I was coming from. And he said that what you learned in that one year being in that team is equivalent to 5 years of learning. And it was true, because when I had moved to the second team, I won't say that the second team was easier, but the responsibilities, everything that was handed to me just felt 10 times lighter. It felt so much lighter, and it felt like I was able to do the things so much faster, to the point where the managers and Andrew appointed me as the new trainee for all of the analysts that were joining that team. So it was to me, I felt like, oh, I'm finally able to add value. I'm finally able to contribute. For the first time I felt that way. And during that time, I was working with Goldman on my immigration and things like that, and I had to constantly be with HR and the attorneys quite a bit. And during one of the conversations with HR, the HR lead, shout out to Adrian, sweetest lady that I'd ever worked with. Adrian, I had asked Adrian, she was responsible for my hiring as well. So I had asked Adrian, I was like, Adrian, why did you guys hire me? Because I literally felt like I just didn't have any value to add. And it was really, really tough for me my first year to 14 months. And I felt like I was putting the team down and the managers down. And you still somehow decided to switch me and put me into another team. And now I feel like I'm able to be of value for this other team. I get along well. So I asked Adrian the reason for them to hire me. And her response was something that I will never forget. Her response was that I had the it factor. And I honestly didn't know what it meant. What does it factor mean? But the thing, what she said, that one of the reasons why she and the our Texas division had lead had decided to move me to a different team, was because even during that time when I felt like I was drowning and I was just trying to survive, they had a lot of people report to them where they said that I was always willing to help someone who didn't understand something, even if I didn't understand it fully myself. I was always willing to help. I may have not been the best teammate and I may have not been available for or like gone to any of the corporate events or not. But if there was anyone who ever asked me for help, I would go above and beyond to always be willing to help them as much as I could. So that was one of the reasons, and then the it factor, which later on Adrian told me, is that I'm very good with people. I'm good with people, and I am a great communicator. Now, I was very grateful and very glad to hear that, and that was along around that time was when I finally felt like I'm getting my footing and I'm understanding how all of this company works, and I felt like I was finally getting in sync and. And I could see a future. I could really see a future. And then, boom, that's when Goldman decides to have its first round of layoffs uh, in 2022. And unfortunately, your boy was part of it. I was let go during that first round of layoffs, and that's when my dreams were shattered and I was completely broken. My confidence was broken into pieces unimaginable. I just didn't know what I needed to do because I was still under a visa and my immigration, my green card process, all of that was on underway. But because of this, everything was what do you call forfeited. And now since I was on a visa, I had a couple of months to find something and I was unable to find something during that time. And I was also unable to enroll myself into a student visa thing because I was let go at a time when it was mid semester. So a lot of things just went against me. And because of that, after 16 years of living in a place, living in a country that I now call home, the US, after 16 years, because of that, I had to leave the US and I moved to Bangladesh. 3 years ago, I moved to Bangladesh, a country where I had never lived. I was only born. I had never lived. I moved to Bangladesh. And that was when reality for me, like the impact of this whole thing that just happened a few months ago, the impact of it, the true impact of it, the reality of it just hit me when I moved here. And in one of my previous videos, I had mentioned that it took me about 6 months for me to accept the reality. And it did. It took me 6 months to accept this reality that I had to leave everything that I had worked so hard and built back home in the US. And within 2 to 3 months, I had to leave and I moved to this country, this country where I don't know anyone besides my family. My family moved here a few years before me as well. So for them too, they're adjusting because they lived all of their lives in the Middle East. And now they're adjusting to it. They just have a couple of more years ahead of experience than I did, but we're all adjusting to it together. But 6 months later, finally, when I accepted all of this, and I was able to, my head was clear. I had decided that I just made a promise to myself that I was like, nah, man, like, this can be the end of my story. This can be the end of my story. All of my life, I've always seen myself as a failure because I always was like, oh, I'm behind everyone. I'm not smart enough. I feel like a fraud. All of these things. Like I was always afraid. I was always afraid that I would miss out on something. I was always afraid that I didn't fit in, and I needed to do things above and beyond to fit in, to belong. I was always afraid. Like I always had this insecurity, and I felt like a failure. That insecurity, that feeling of a fraudster, that feeling of a failure had always driven me to do things that I necessarily didn't want to do, but I just wanted to be part of the clan. I wanted to belong. I wanted to be seen as someone. So now, at the age of 35, like 35, and I'm here in Bangladesh, 6 months into Bangladesh, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, what have I really done? What have I really achieved? Yes, on paper, I have all of these things, but what have I really achieved as an individual? If I am not able to accept myself fully and stand up for what it is that I truly want and believe in. And and that was when I decided that I was like, this setback, this failure, it is only a failure if I just stop. And I cannot do that. I cannot allow this to be the end of my story. This is not how my story ends. And it was a decision that I made. I am not saying it was an easy decision, but it was a decision that was made because I had a chip on my shoulder. I had a chip on my shoulder. Cody talks about a chip on her shoulder that had pushed her to do a lot of the things that she had done. And I'm not saying having a chip on your shoulder is really a healthy way of looking at things, but for me, having that chip on my shoulder, the chip on my shoulder was that I had to leave home and I had to come to a country where I don't belong. I don't belong. I may be Bangladeshi, but I don't belong here. Culturally, I'm very different. I'm very, very different. But whatever it is, this is my reality, and now I have to accept it. So with that chip on my shoulder of like, I have to do whatever I can in my power to find a way to go back home. I either need to find a way or I need to make my own way, but I am going to go back home. I just don't know when and I don't know how, but I am going to find a way or make my own way. And that's what led me into this whole 3-year journey of self-discovery where what I was chasing was growth. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? Where is this world going? And I started taking inventory of my own stack of skills that I have and the things that I'm good at, the things that I have been told that I am great at, and the things that I am not very good at. And what can I learn? What can I do to complement my strengths, the things that I'm good at? How can I make myself indispensable or at least a strong candidate for where the world is headed for a future that is so uncertain, but I am going to be able to have a strong footing and be so relevant and competent that I am indispensable and pretty much recession proof. What can I do? So that's how the last 3 years has been. It's been a constant trial and error, experimentation. Okay, experts are saying this is where finance is going. I had decided that I'm not going to go into finance, and I started learning other things. I started taking marketing classes. I started taking coding. I started learning about business analysis, all of these things, like things that were completely out of my purview. I started learning all of these things. And during that learning process, I understood, okay, I don't want to do this, but I really like this part of it. I really like this. So I started picking the things that I'm really good at from the different things that I started learning. And over time, my vision, my dream, started being more refined. My reasons of why it is that I want to go back home. What are my reasons? What do I want to do? It kept refining. I didn't have a concrete vision. Like what I mean is that I didn't have like a concrete idea of what it is that I wanted to do fully or how it is that I wanted to contribute. But I knew that this is something that I had a vague idea, and it just became more and more clear. The path got more and more clear during this time as I was progressing and as I started pursuing bettering myself and improving myself, I started meeting other people, people who were 10 steps ahead of me, 5 steps ahead of me. And I started meeting people, more and more people who were like minded and who were successful in their own terms, but they wanted to do things, other things. They wanted to pursue different things. They wanted to expand themselves. They wanted to grow themselves. They wanted to grow their own empires. So I started connecting with such people, and the more I started doing those things, the more I started learning, the more I started growing myself. And eventually I started writing on LinkedIn. I started sharing my own stories. I started sharing the lessons that I've learned throughout my time. I started building a small community, and that led to this podcast. I wanted to started recording myself. One of the reasons why I wanted to record myself is because I wanted to get comfortable being in front of the camera and just record myself. Like, this is unusual, me just looking at the camera and talking. But I wanted to step into my fear, and I wanted to do this because I know that through post, through writing, I could only reach a certain amount of people. But if I record myself, and if I put it out in the ether and combine all of these things together, I'm just putting it myself out there. Someone, somewhere, somehow is going to be seeing this, and they might resonate with this, and they might be inspired to believe in themselves a little bit more. And if they're going through a hard time, hopefully they get inspired and motivated through my message. You see, for me, after I took responsibility of my life and decided that this is not it, man, I am going to create something of my own. I'm going to make a ton of mistakes. I am not going to shy away from asking people who can help me, the advice that I can get, all of that. I just stopped being shy. I was ruthlessly shameless. And I would just be out there. I would be out there and I would just learn, and I would ask how I could help, and I would learn along the way. And I realized that for me, I never wanted to be working for someone. I wanted to work with someone. I wanted to be in a position. I wanted to put myself into a position through my own stack of evidence that I create for myself, like proof of concept, proof of work. I wanted to create that evidence for myself where I am the leverage. The work that I do, the evidence that I create is the leverage, and I can be someone's partner. Even if I may be their employee, whatnot, but I am considered, I am seen as someone who is invaluable, and someone who's so valuable, their input is so valuable that we think of this person, they think of me as a strategic partner, as a strategic thinker. So I am far, far, far away from my goal, but I am super excited for this and this journey. It's not been easy. It has not been easy. And if you're going through your own journey of this sort, let me just tell you that I empathize with you. I truly do. It is not easy because there are days when you want to give up, where there are days when you feel like the whole world is about to collapse and everything that you've worked so hard for, including all of the past work that you had done, it's all going down in vain. I know how it feels, and I know that it sucks. And sometimes you feel like you're all alone. There is no one who understands you. It is, it is difficult. It is difficult. And so I empathize with you if you're going through your own journey. My only suggestion to you is to find people who support you emotionally, who are there to support you emotionally, whether they understand what it is that you're going through or what it is that you're trying to achieve. Whether they understand that or not is irrelevant. But what you want is, you want to find people who will support you emotionally through thick and thin. For me, my parents are going through their own struggle, but for me, I sometimes see failure, this whole setback, this whole failure as a privilege, because I may have lost everything on paper. I may have lost the life that I had built for myself. Yes, but it's temporary. You know why? Because I had a family to come back to. I had a home. I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to worry about food. I don't have to pay or worry about any utilities. I'm living with my parents. Yes, it's not something that I'm proud of, but it is what it is, and I am not ashamed of it. I'm not shy to admit that. So the fact that I failed, but I failed and I achieved all of this. I got my family back. I'm able to live with my family. I'm able to see my siblings grow. I'm able to do this, strive to achieve something, strive to build something of my own, while I don't have to worry about any of the other expenses or any of the other headaches. So failure in that essence becomes a privilege. And I'm sure a lot of people, if you are able to watch this, if you have technology, computer, a laptop, a smartphone, and you have access to internet, and you are able to see this, then you, my friend, are very, very privileged. So don't let that privilege be taken for granted. that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm not asking you to be like me, but what I'm saying is that for me, when I realized that, I was like, man, even though I may have faced a setback, but this only becomes a failure if I don't take advantage of the reality that I'm in. Start where you are with what you have. And then from there, once when you start the thing, whatever it is that you are trying to achieve, you start taking small actions. You make incremental progress towards that. You will improve. You will improve yourself. You will improve in the way you convey and do the things as well. And there'll come a point when you're so good at it that you will start having ideas on how you can make better at it, better things. And that's how everything happens around you. So please find people who can support you, who will support you emotionally during this time, because it's very, very important. It's very important to keep your mind and your body in a healthy state during this time, because it is going to get tough. And all of this, just look at all of these things as preparation. Failure, embarrassment, all of this is just the cost of entry. It's the least amount that you can pay before you actually achieve the thing that you are striving towards. And they say that, before you actually achieve it, it gets even worse. So whatever it is that you're going through, just think of it as preparation for the challenges ahead. But here's the good part. It's not that the challenges get easier. It's that you get stronger. You get better at navigating challenges. You get better at, breaking them down into smaller chunks, so that you are able to achieve more and keep making progress. So with that being said, I love you. And I want you to know that I support you. And if you're going through this, please don't give up. Believe in yourself. Don't let any failure get to you. Don't let failures get to your heart. But most importantly, if you're succeeding, if you're making progress, don't let that get to your head as well. Let the failures and the setbacks that you have experienced, let that make you humble, and let that make you not take anything for granted. See the world as it is. The present situation is where you can make a difference. How you respond to your present circumstances is what's going to create the future that you envision. That's going to be the final message from me. Please, I love you. Thank you so much for supporting me. And I realized that I had not said this in the previous video. So please, if you like this, subscribe to my channel and share this video with anyone whom you think could find this helpful. Don't give up. Believe in yourself, as cliche as it is, but it is true. Believe in your unique strengths. Believe that if you have been able to overcome your past challenges, then you have 100% success rate, and you are going to be able to overcome whatever challenge you're facing right now as well. Surround yourself with the right people, and don't be too hard on yourself. Take it one step at a time. All right, guys. With that being said, Rana out. Peace. Subscribe, like, and share in the comments what resonated most with you. Until next time, peace.